All right, the last time when we left off on introducing accidentals to cause changes in notes, this is where we were. This is the exact same panel. All right, just kind of pick back up on it. We said a sharp, which I say, kind of looks like a tic-tac-toe board, hashtag symbol, pound sign, whatever you know it as, given what generation you come from. That's pretty much what it is. Sometimes it'll have a little lean to it, like how I drew it, or sometimes it'll literally just be a tic-tac-toe board, depending on the font or the print, and that is a sharp sign, and it raises a note. I didn't say how far, but it raises a note, as in when we're talking about raising a note, we're talking about going higher, all right? So it's not like just, it could be a note that's on the exact same line or space, which we'll get into lines and spaces in a moment, but it goes higher than a note that's on the exact same line or space. These, accidentals are what causes that. And the sharp sign is one of those tools we use for that. All right. I'm going to skip the second one and go to the flat. The flat does the exact opposite of the sharp, okay? The sharp goes up a certain amount. The flat takes it down a certain amount. So we're talking about B, now B flat. Okay, before we were talking about any note. I'm just going to pick a note, A sharp. There are differences between them. So if you just say B, you just say A, and it's B flat or it's A sharp, regardless of how close it was letter-wise, that's technically the wrong pitch. And if somebody sings that in your music or anybody else's music that way, it's the wrong note. It's going to come off as that. There is no getting around it. So learn that now. There's a difference. No getting around it. It's not, oh, I was close. You weren't close. It's the wrong answer. That's like saying 1 + 1 = 3. 1 + 1 = 5. It's the same thing. At any rate. And again, the natural sign neutralizes. So I'm going to actually give distance in terms of intervals, or how we determine how far a sharp goes. A sharp takes a note up 1/2 of a step. And a flat lowers a note 1/2 of a step. Now this natural sign, I'm just going to put neutralize. Because it can do both. And it can actually do a little bit more than that, but it can do both. It can definitely do both. So you have your A, I'll put that here, and you say, boom, it's A sharp now. The note just went up a 1/2 step. And then the very next note to it says A natural. Two completely different notes. Then the very next note says A flat. You will later learn that this is a chromatic line if you see it like that. A sharp, A natural, A flat, descending in that order. We'll get to that later. Just kind of using some musical terminology for those that may already know it. So again, these are 3 completely different notes. So let's say we have a piece of music and you were playing C sharp, or singing C sharp, C sharp, C sharp, C sharp. And then you get to a point and it says, that means that that note is no longer sharp. That is natural. Okay? That is no longer sharp. That is natural. Forgive me. Still got a job to do, so people are messaging me, band director and all. All right, but at any rate, C sharp, C natural, 2 completely different notes. Then you got, of course, C flat. 3 completely different notes, all in the same letter. So when we talked about the musical alphabet, it was saying A through G is what we will always use, and we just use variations of A through G. So 3 completely different notes, even though it's written as the exact same letter. And let's talk a little bit more about what do we mean by going up a 1/2 step or a whole step. But before I do that, I'm going to take this slide out in case you need to get a screenshot. This one has the names of it there. It's the exact same information. I think I wrote it a little bit bigger because I created this one separately. But it's the same thing, a sharp, which I wrote it on here this time, sharp. Raises a note See the arrow pointing up, 1/2 step. A flat lowers a note 1/2 step. And a natural neutralizes sharps and flats. It's another thing that it does, or another type of accidental that it addresses, but for the time being, we're just going to say it neutralizes sharps and flats. On the other one, I just said neutralize because it's not going to always just be a sharp or a flat as you see it that it neutralizes. But here's a slide that you can, boom, get that screenshot, adjust it so that it's just got that caption if you need it. But let's go to actually talking about using this keyboard. And I'm going to attempt to use this again to so you can hear it audibly, what happens. So, and it's written here. We have A sharp. You see how it went over a piano key? So basically, if you go up a 1/2 step or you're going up pitch wise, you're going to go from left to right. So when I say go up a 1/2 step, that's A. Let me use something that got a middle C in it, a little bit closer. No. Need something in the middle of that. Yeah, C4. I was probably there the whole time and didn't realize it. It is what it is. Okay, we're gonna use C since we're dealing with C. I said A first, we're gonna go with C. C, all right, C sharp. And you can see here, C sharp. But you're like, well, it's another note there. That is called an enharmonic. And I'm gonna take out my old alphabet slab, whiteboard, and I'm gonna write the word enharmonic. All right, this means that they're spelled differently, but they sound the same. Oh my goodness, but they sound the same. All right, so that means just like you just saw, C sharp and D flat sound exactly the same, but they're spelled different. And it's based on what accidental is being used and what's the starting pitch. That's kind of how my first name is Christopher, but you can spell Chris, C-H-R-I-S, or K-R-I-S. It sounds exactly the same. There wouldn't be any difference in how you would pronounce it, but it's spelled differently based on the fact that you started with a K here and you started with a C here. So it sounds the same, but it's spelled different. That is the definition of enharmonic, and I'll write that. So using this exact same whiteboard before I go back to the keyboard, I'll say A sharp. And technically A sharp would come over this way a little bit because it went up, remember? But then I'm going to look at B and say, well, B goes back. B flat goes back. They meet up on the same key. So now you can see the construction of that black key in between those two. And behind this, and I'm going to go ahead and put a G here. I'm expanding because I need it for right now. I'll say G sharp. Remember, it's going up, so it's going to the right. A flat comes back a little. Boom, they meet up right there. All right. So you got G, G sharp, A flat, same pitch. That's enharmonic. And you come over to A. Then you got A sharp, B flat, which is the same pitch, two different spellings of the same pitch, going to B. Now, we talked about something. I'm about to slide this out the way. You know, this would be the part where you take a screenshot or whatever it is that you want to do. If you need to remember something that's here. And I'm going to grab another one of my mini whiteboards. All right, we said our natural half steps occur between B and C. So just like we have here, we say A sharp and B flat meet in the middle. Well, if we take into account natural half steps, let me make sure I line all this stuff up so you can see all of it at once. This is new to me too, so I'm learning. Cool. We're talking about natural half steps between B and C, which you can see it plainly here. There is no black key in between them. So this is where it differs, and these are the only spots that it's different between B and C, E and F. In this particular case, B sharp is the exact same note as C. It's not labeled here because B sharp isn't common, all right? It isn't labeled on this keyboard because B sharp isn't common, nor is, and I'm going to temporarily erase that, C flat. But here's where C flat and B sharp would be, because you have to go over that half step. So if we're on B, say go up a half step, C, but we could also call that B sharp, all right? I'm going to keep going. I've erased that, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to say I go up a half step from C. Now, if you take a look, it's a black key between C and D. So we can do what we would normally do. Oh, well, enharmonic, D flat, all right? Then we got D, then we can do D sharp, E flat, all right? Then we get over to E. And you should be able to see this plain as day on the keyboard. So I'll start from B, and we'll just ignore that for right now, that A, okay? All right, didn't expect that. Let's see how this goes. All right. You got B going to C, B, directly over to C, B, going to C. Then you have, and we're going up in half steps. We're going up half step at a time so we can understand what sharps do. All right, now we're on C, up to C sharp. That went up a half step, and you can hear that little difference. So we have C here, and it goes up to C sharp, but the other name for C sharp is D flat. So we could have been on D and gone back to D flat. And it's the same thing. It's all about what pitch you started on that determines what the accidental is or what it's written as. So if you see a D flat, yeah, it sounds the same as C sharp, but that's still D flat. And we need to be able to speak musically based on the key signatures, which will come later. All right. D sharp, E flat, E, another natural half step here. So we know what to do. Well, E sharp is the same as F. And F flat is the same as E. Now, it's not labeled here because those two aren't common. So if you ever look at a keyboard and you say, well, why isn't it on the keyboard? It's because it's uncommon. E is F flat, F is E sharp. And it's like that for every single time you see it. Well, how do I find E and F? How do I find B and C? When you see three black keys and they come in clusters, you see it's 2, 3, 2, 3, 2 in that order repeatedly. If you see 2 first, that means that the note that comes right before it is a C, and the note that comes right after it is E with D in the middle. All right? Because the piano is not going to have it labeled like it is here on this virtual or app keyboard or on this paper keyboard. So this is, of course, something you have to learn over time. Then you have F, F sharp, G flat, G. Well, I'll just name the black keys. F sharp, G flat, G sharp, A flat, A sharp, B flat. And that's that other cluster. So you got 2 here, 2, 3 here. F is here before it. B is after it. Memorizing the keyboard is going to be vital. So again, our sharps take us up. I'll go back for our flats. All right. So I got F. F flat is the same as E. That's just what it is. Or you can say E natural. And then the next key will be E flat, going backwards. We were doing this chromatically, which that word comes up a lot. So that means that you need to be on the lookout for that, or you can go ahead and get ahead of me and look it up. All right. D, D flat, C, and so on. So sharps and flats overlap. It's about the spelling of the note that determines whether we write it as sharp or flat. Our key signature, what is the proper spelling? Okay, there are words that mean the exact same thing in different languages, but we have to pronounce them in that language in order to actually be speaking Spanish. Same difference here.